My purpose here is to briefly introduce the imperfect stems, or Binyanim, and I'm here thinking of the 7 main stems. So again, we're talking about kal, nifal, pa'el, pu'al, hitpa'el, hitpa'el, and hofal. And again, I would invite you to think in terms of kind of the kal, the pa'el, and the hitpa'el as the heads of these 3 families, and kal being the pa'el and hitpa'el being the active voice, and then nifal functioning as sort of passive and or reflexive, and for pa'el, the pu'al functioning as passive, and hitpa'el functioning as reflexive, and for hitpa'el, the hofal functions as basically your passive. So it's the same exact stems, or binyanim, as we had for the perfect form, but now we need to apply these to the imperfect form, and it's just a little bit more challenging because several of the elements of the stem, like the nun in the nifal, or the he in the hitpa'el, hofal, or the hit in the hitpa'el, they're all competing for the front of the root. And in the case of the imperfect verb, so is the imperfect pronoun, he, she, you, I, and so on. And it's important, very important, to know the kal imperfect form well, because while there's some competition for the front of the root, the prefix pronoun of the kal imperfect form, the yod, tav, aleph, yod, tav, or nun, that prefix pronoun letter always wins. So we're always going to see these on the front of imperfect, no matter which stem it is. So it's super important to memorize the kal very well, because it's going to be the same across all the different main stems. And as you can see here, if you look across horizontally, we have exactly the same prefix pronoun consonant for the third masculine singular on all of these. And whenever there is a suffix, it's exactly the same, no matter which form we're looking at. So again, my point here is just to remind you to memorize the kal very, very well, because when it comes to the person, gender, and number, we have exactly the same kinds of prefixes and suffixes on all of the main stems, or binyanim, of the imperfect verb. Now I have lined up on this page all of the third person masculine singular forms of the 7 main binyanim. And the point is to kind of get a sense of the main indicators that clue us in to which stem we're looking at. Now, the important ones are kal, pa'el, hitpa'el, and maybe next out is nifal. But here's all 7 nonetheless. And you'll notice when we look at the nifal, we notice that nuns assimilate. And so that's what the dagesh is. It's a dagesh forte in the first root letter of the nifal. And that dagesh needs to jump out at us and say, I'm a nun, I'm a nun. This is a nifal. So when we see yikatel, we'll put it in the nifal sense here, he was killed. That's what the dagesh is telling us, that this is a nifal. Now in the case of the pa'el, the key indicator is the shva under the prefix pronoun. Now many times there are dageshim in the ayin letter, but the real key is to take notice of the vowel that's under the prefix pronoun. So when we have hitpa'el, that shva there is telling us this is a PL, so I need to translate this in the sense of he will slaughter. Now for the hitpa'el form, you'll notice there's two indicators here. Let me invite you not to worry about the hierarch yod in the middle. That's not a reliable indicator, but rather focus your attention on the patak under the prefix pronoun, yaktil. That patak is telling you this is a hitpa'el. He caused to kill. So those are really very important as far as the main stems go. To notice the noon assimilated into the kof, the shva under the prefix pronoun for the PL, and the patak under the prefix pronoun for the hitpa'el. And one last point, just of some concern here. For the hitpa'el, remember the prefix that goes on this is he tate. And that gets attached to the beginning of the root. Well, what you can see is that the he and tate got attached to the beginning of this, but so did the yod prefix pronoun. And what happens is the yod displaced the he because it's one of the Jonah letters. So now we have yitkatel. And again, this is sort of the suicidal form. He will kill himself. So here we have the main stems, kal, pl, hitpa'el, and also nifal, together on this page. And what you can see is the consistency with which we have the noon in the pei letter all the way down the column here for the nifal. And when we talk about the pl, very consistently using the shva, no matter which prefix pronoun is there, we have the shva. The only one that's a little bit tricky here is the first person because it has a compound shva. Akatel, I will slaughter. And in the hitpa'el, you'll notice that under the prefix pronoun for the imperfect form, we have a patak all the way down the line here, indicating for us this is a hitpa'el. But what you'll notice is, in the case of a couple of the forms, here the 3FS and the 3FP and the 2FP, we have a collapsing of the hierarch yod into a tsere. And while it's only in two forms here in the imperfect, in the vav conversive hitpa'el, this is going to be much more common. So again, I want to encourage you, focus on the patak under the prefix pronoun. That's the main indicator that we're talking about a hitpa'el.